Welcome back to another episode of Life After Corporate, my friend. And if you're new to our show, welcome home. This is where we deliver the strategies, the tactics, the ideas that are working today for new women entrepreneurs and men too. Same strategies work for you guys as well as us gals. And today we're going to talk about where a podcast fits in your content strategy. We have a very special guest here today. Rachel Kopczyk is the founder of Lady on TV Productions, where she helps entrepreneurs and associations stop treating their podcasts like a side hobby and start using them as a powerhouse content marketing engine. With thousands of hours of content production under her belt, Rachel brings a broadcast-first mentality to the digital world. Her credibility is rooted in the high-pressure world of television, having produced live nightly newscasts for Fox 35 Orlando and served as the executive producer and co-host of the nationally syndicated lifestyle show Life, Love, Shopping. Today, Rachel and her team at Lady on TV Productions handle everything from high-level strategy to social media editing, allowing their clients to stop worrying about the tech and finally show up and lead their industry conversations. Welcome to Life After Corporate, Rachel.
Thank you, Deb. I am so glad to be here. I cannot wait to share all of my juicy tips and knowledge about this because I get really fired up and passionate to help people. So let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, first I want to know, why would you ever leave such a prestigious career in broadcast news, syndicated TV?
Well, I didn't choose to leave. I was let go from my last job. They were downsizing and changing the structure of the TV show. And I decided to pack up everything and move from Florida to Los Angeles with no job, nowhere to live besides a couch to sleep on for a couple months and figure it out and try hosting and producing on my own. And I left corporate, and I also left because if you've ever worked in local news or talked to anybody who's worked in local news, it is a grind. It is very competitive. It's very depressing. You don't get to talk about anything happy. The grind of being stuck in that cycle every day is very draining on the soul and the spirit. And the paths for me in that world, if I was going to stay on that corporate ladder, were becoming a news director, which I saw my news directors and I was like, I do not want that job. That is not fulfilling to me at all. And being locked into the news cycle on your phone 24 hours a day. Like, I don't think they ever slept. I barely slept. I worked all hours. I was called in on vacation days, like you name it. That's that beast. And I didn't want that for myself. And I still wanted to be able to work in this space, share knowledge, have fun, be happy, do something that was serving people, but in a different way. And I found myself producing podcasts on like accident, because I started my own podcast and the people were like, Rachel, can you do my podcast? Rachel, what do you know about podcasting? And that's kind of how it happened.
Well, I truly believe that people who have a media background are a league apart when it comes to producing shows and producing content of any kind, because you're an innate storyteller and you had the opportunity to hone and craft that skill over a number of years. And maybe not everybody should have a podcast. Do you know what I mean?
Deb, I do know what you mean. Not everybody should have a podcast. I have listened to many a podcast that I don't get past the first 30 seconds because I can't listen to it. There's no story arc. I have no idea who the audience is. I don't know what they're talking about. And there's a lot of good reasons, though, to have a podcast if you're going to use it
Let's
as
talk
your
about that.
content machine. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What are the elements of a show that doesn't land, right? And we all know that like 90% of podcasts out there never make it past 10 episodes or something. It's a crazy number. But what are the mistakes people make and what are the elements of a really good show?
Couple of mistakes people make are thinking they're going to become the next Mel Robbins, or you name your favorite podcast host. The landscape of podcasting has changed drastically in the last 10 years from when it started. It can be very difficult to build an audience if you don't know who you are serving. That's the number one thing I teach any client or anybody I talk to who says, "Oh, I want to start a podcast." Okay, cool. Who are you talking to and why should they listen to you? There's like a handful of questions that everybody should be able to answer about their podcast. Why are you doing it? Who are you talking to? What are you giving them? And why should they listen to you? Because there's thousands of hundreds of podcasts available. So once you can get clear on those key elements, you can be really successful. The other key things are with the podcast is it's work still. It's marketing. If you think of podcasting as marketing for your business or service, then you can wrap your head around it a little more, as opposed to there's just this another thing I have to do and everybody has one. So if you think of it like that, you can then generate a ton of content from one podcast episode. And that's sort of the avenue I go down, which I know we're going to talk about. But to
Mhm.
answer your other questions of the biggest mistakes and the biggest successes are not knowing why you're doing it. And you can do a podcast to just have fun and talk about makeup or chat with your girlfriends because you just want to do that and you want to have that outlet. But just know you're going to spend time and money and not make any money and not get any time back, except if that's valuable to you and that's fun, then do it. But know that that's what you're doing and why you're doing it. This is a really great resource to have a podcast as your place for your community. Your hopefully potential clients, customers can come and view you as a trusted source of knowledge and information. Yes, it can convert to clients. You have to be really strategic about what you're doing though, and it's a multi-process thing. You cannot just expect your podcast to convert to clients. That's a little unrealistic, I think.
Yeah, I get that all the time. I want to launch a podcast so I can attract more clients, and it's not like people go from listening to an episode of your podcast and signing up with you
Mm-mm.
for your latest and greatest offer. And content is indeed queen, right? So you need to be discoverable. Your message and your positioning is what differentiates you. And it's a real intimate relationship, I think, when you
Mhm.
have loyal listeners who have you in their earbuds every single week if you publish that frequently. And it's a responsibility, I think, to give them something of
Mhm.
value that helps them move the needle forward. For I'm a self-help junkie, so I love listening to podcasts that help me improve myself or learn something new about mindset or neuroplasticity or whatever it is. But when people think, "Oh, I want to launch a podcast so I can get clients," why is that a false premise?
That is a false premise because that is the equivalent of saying, I'm going to start a TikTok and then everybody is going to find my TikTok magically and
Mm.
they are going to then find the link to my website and then they're going to buy my business and product and services. It's this equivalent of that. Like you said, you're nurturing your audience when you have a podcast. It's a trust that you're building with the people who are spending 30 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour once a week listening to you. It does convert eventually, but it's more of a marketing piece. Like I had said, this is the piece where you get to show who you are, your knowledge. People are excited to listen to Deb talk to her guests because she brings on interesting guests that help me with my business, and I leave feeling like I can do something with it. The making money part with it is tricky because I believe it's should be part of your big pyramid scheme of your business. It's one piece of the puzzle, What I really encourage people to do is if you're going to take an hour a week and record a podcast, it should be on video. You should have all the things I mentioned before, the who, what, when, where, why, how, why you're doing this, have your mission statement clear of why you're doing it. But then you need to take this video content and make 10 social media clips out of it. And you can use that for marketing and branding across your top 3 social media platforms where you have your other audiences who might never listen to your podcast, but you're going to repurpose what you're doing here to feed the other pieces, which do ultimately bring you business and do get people to come to you, right? It might be through the podcast. You might get a client who sees a LinkedIn post and follows you on LinkedIn. You might get someone from Instagram. It depends on what your business is and what you're doing and who you're serving, but the podcast is just a piece of the puzzle. You can then take the transcript of this episode, run it through an AI program, and write an email blast that has 5 tips to start a podcast with Rachel on this episode. So your email list might never listen to your podcast, but you've now got the content to feed your email list to build that trust, build that connection, because that's how people do business, right? You only buy a
Yeah.
product or service from somebody that you trust or know or have seen. And it's a matter of taking this one podcast episode and utilizing it to support your business across all those other means. And then it can make you money. That's
Yeah.
what I
And
believe. Other people will
and I
tell
think
you otherwise, and that's okay.
no, but if we believe the adage that Daniel Priestley put out there that people need to spend about 7 hours with your content before they make a decision to buy from you. And if you are in people's ears every single week and they are consuming, 20, 30-minute episodes, you're rapidly building up that trust factor. And so here's another question for you, because it's
Mhm.
so much easier to schedule an interview than it is to write original content, right? And
Yes.
so what is
Yes.
your view on the blend of interviews versus solo shows? What have you seen as being the most conducive to establishing a brand and a brand persona and a messaging platform? So let's start there.
Right. So solo shows versus interview-based shows. I don't think one is better than the other. There are podcasts I listen to with solo-based hosts because they have a really good structure and they are not afraid to sit in front of a microphone and come up with a strategy of what they want to talk about. So there's a little bit of prep involved in either an interview or a solo. If you're going to do an interview episode, you still are doing planning, Deb, right? You're
Mhm.
coming up with your questions. You have your few questions that you ask most of your guests, and then you tailor them based on their expertise. And that's one way to do it. And then that drives people to your show because they want to hear from lots of different people, right? Some shows, when you're doing them solo hosted, where you're just talking and sharing your expertise, they're coming because they just want to hear from Deb or they just want to
Mm.
hear from you. There's a therapist podcast that I listen to, and she has a really great structure of here's the problem, here's why you feel this way, here's how you fix it. Thanks for listening. And it works. And that's a formula, right? There's a formula.
Mhm.
There's this storytelling piece of it. And you can do it in both formats. Some people are terrified to sit in front of a microphone and not have anybody else to talk to. And they don't know what to say and their brain doesn't work that way. And that's okay. One is not better or worse than the other as long as you have that structure in place and can interview. Some people can't do interviewing. They don't know how to active listen, or that's hard for them, or our guest goes off the rails and how do you get it back? And then you have to edit it. And there's other pieces that come in with interviewing people as well and being curious and being open-minded. And I would say you have to kind of go with you personally, which piece you feel most comfortable in. Don't try to be an interviewer if that is overwhelming to you and you have no clue how to carry on a conversation that can also deliver some valuable takeaways to your audience. Go the solo
Mm.
route. And also, you can do both. I don't think that's not an answer that maybe your audience wants to hear, that they're like, well, which one do I just do, Rachel? Which one? But you have to do it based on where your strengths lie.
Yeah, we do both. I mean, we absolutely do both. I think the biggest hurdle that you need to be aware of when you start a show is you have to feed the beast, right? If you've committed to a podcast, and this podcast has been around for 6 years now, and
Congrats.
it's a commitment because you made a
Mhm.
promise to an audience that we're going to give you something valuable every single week. And so you have to live up to your own commitments. And so I think when you start a show, you're the producer, where do you
Mhm.
start? Where do you start
Right.
with even
You
conceiving about what is my show about?
Yeah, you can make a list of your expertise or things that you could talk about ad nauseum for the rest of your life. That's where I would start, with a list of what you're most passionate about or what you feel really confident talking about, where you have a lot of expertise. Start there and then go through the categories like you just did. Do you want to be entertainment? Do you want to be informative? And then who do you want to serve? So you take like your list of things that you would love to talk about and could talk about, because as you said, the content machine is a beast and you're going to have to feed it. And there are going to be days where you're not going to want to feed it. But if it's something that you're truly deeply connected to, that will hopefully give you a little more willpower to keep going. I had a hockey podcast. I did it as a fan because I just loved it. I love this sport and I was super excited about it. I did it with another co-host, and we decided we wanted to talk about the off ice stuff, the stuff we talk about with girls when we kiki together. Like, did you see that cute guy? And did you see so and so had a baby? And that kind of thing. And our audience was women because we wanted to reach other women who felt the same way we did. So you take those pieces and you put that together for yourself as well. And the more specific you can get, and I will preach this until I can't anymore, but your audience is the most important part of any content or any podcast you ever do. Who are you talking to and who are you serving with your knowledge, with your expertise, with your formula, whatever it is? If you don't know who you're talking to and you can't tell me you're talking to men and women aged 25 to 65, that is not an audience. That is not specific enough for this. And you want to talk to them singularly when you do the show as well. So figuring out that based on your expertise and maybe where you already have a little bit of an audience. You mostly serve women here. There are men, of course, and that's okay. It's okay to be really specific and niche with what you're talking about, because then you know exactly what interview questions to ask. What is the audience members' pain points? What are their problems? What information do they need to solve about their life after corporate? Once you can look through all of those pieces, the audience piece informs every decision you make about your podcast or your content anywhere. It should. If you're not serving the audience and putting them in the front of mind, that's like one of the big mistakes people make, because the questions you ask me should be for your audience. And when you're listening to me talk, I might say something and you're going to go like, ooh, my audience, because you know them and you're nurturing them, might want to know this. And so
Yeah.
those kind of three key pieces are what helps you decide how you're going to do this. So who you are, right? What are you an expert in? What do you love talking about? Or what do you really want to share with your potential clients or your potential audience, your community? Where do you fit in the categories? Where do you want it to go? Do you want it to be entertainment, infotainment, just how to interview style? And then who is going to listen to it? Who are you serving with it? If you can figure out those three pieces, you can put a podcast together.
Yeah. I think, as I'm looking back, I'm just sitting here reflecting 6 years ago, I really wanted it to be a movement. And in fact, Life After
Hmm.
Corporate was framed as the new feminist movement, where women were taking control of how they made an impact, how they earned their wealth. And I feel like the world is just catching up to me because I think women are now leaving
Hmm.
corporate in droves, to have that freedom and that flexibility. And I think if you're focused on, what is the change that my clients want to see? And you're right, it's not all self-help, it's entertainment, it's behind the scenes, being a fly on the
Hmm.
wall, getting a spiritual boost. But in all of those, they have a very, very narrow, specific audience. Even Mel Robbins, who's one of the
Hmm.
the top podcasters in the world today, Mel Robbins, Brene Brown, they are known for
Hmm.
something very specific, which is breaking down the everyday mindset, relationship issues, and having a very practical way of dissecting that and giving you a new perspective, a new way of thinking about it. And, that's how podcasts go viral. So to
Hmm.
that end, I would think that if you're going to be a podcaster, you need to be known for something, right? You need to have a brand persona, a brand
Hmm.
message, something that you really stands out and that is uniquely your own. You
I would
Yeah.
absolutely agree with that. And don't like the word Mel Robbins or any of these other big famous podcasters deter you from thinking, because I know as women, we can often think, well, I don't, is anybody really going to listen to what I have to say? I don't know. I mean, am I really an expert? Don't let yourself go down that self doubt rabbit
Mhm.
hole. You have an opinion, or if you feel passionate about something and you have an expertise in it, there is room for your voice. Your voice is different than everybody else's. And yes, there are a lot of people doing podcasts or creating content, but that doesn't stop us from sharing it from our perspectives. I
Mhm.
mean, I think even Gabby Bernstein says that. Like,
Mm.
there's a ton of people who talk about sports or whatever, but you only hear, as the audience member, you will hear and take in different things from said to you 10 different ways from 10 different people.
Mhm.
And so if you have an idea and you want to do this, I really encourage you to do it, and don't let the comparison stop you, and don't let that doubting voice in your head saying, well, who wants to listen to me, stop you. If you feel that burning desire, that fire in your belly, that you really have something you need to share in the world, then do it.
And is that what you help people do? Do you help people come up with the storylines and the
Mhm.
strategy for their podcasts? Tell us more about how you work with
Yeah.
people and getting their shows off the ground.
It's my favorite part, Deb, getting people's shows off the ground. Today, as we are recording this, I just launched a new podcast for a client, and it is so exciting because she had an idea and a concept, and I get to bring it to life. So people come to me in all different stages of the process. Some people are like, I have a name and I don't know anything else, Rachel, about, do I do interviews? Do I not? All the things
Mhm.
we've already talked about. And so I work through them with all those steps that I shared to figure out what works for them and what's going to work for their audience. So there's that strategy. Some people already have a show and they're like, Rachel, I'm tired of editing it myself and I don't want to do any of the social media clip stuff. Here, you and your team, just you guys do that. And I trust you. Here's the logins, go post everything. But the part where I get to teach people this method of, like, who are you serving? Why are you doing this? Who are we talking to? And bringing that to that specific audience lights me up. And it's such a gift to be able to do that for people, because I know the person I'm working with has that passion of, they really believe in sharing this thought, this message, this concept. And when they have that passion, it fuels me to want to give it my all. I do anyway, but it's extra nice when you know they're super passionate about it and they're committed to it
Mhm.
and serving their audience with their expertise. So I go through everything. Like we can do everything from no concept or like a loose concept, and we can work together to figure out what the name is, what format, the questions. I can coach you on interviewing, coach you on hosting solo episodes, structure, framework, and then all the tech side. As you know, there's a whole tech element to it, but that's actually, I feel like, the easiest part. There's so many great tools out there to just set this up for
Yeah.
whatever works
But
best
what
for.
is it from a producer's point of view? This is what I'm really
Mhm.
interested in too. From a
Okay.
producer's point of view, what makes a show great in the editing? Do you know what I mean? Is it important to have a sizzle up front? Is it important that the host do a summary up front about what this conversation is all about? What
Mhm.
are some of the elements of a really great production for a podcast?
The same sort of method as you would do when you're trying to set up your podcast if you start one.
Yeah.
Who am I? Who is this for? Who is the guest? What are we talking about? What are you learning? Where to go for more? Thank you so much. It's that sort of when you open the table of contents, if you will, of a book, of maybe
Mhm.
not like a fiction book, but like a helping book, an educational book. You learn, okay, these are the things, and then you take your audience through that. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
so
yeah, I
ingrained
think
in it every day that I don't think about it from that perspective, because it's so
yeah.
innately who I am and what I do. So did that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and,
Okay.
number 1, a really good storyline, but, also something I
Mhm.
always forget is the call to action. I'm so focused on
Mm.
sharing the information that sometimes you forget, how to tell people to take the next step with you, and so, sometimes we'll do an interstitial or a little mini commercial or leave it to the end. I mean, is there a best practice there in where you should drop a hint or a call to action during an episode so that it doesn't feel like, I mean, some of the big commercial podcasts, it's really hard because there's so many commercials. It's like watching network
Yes.
television, right? So there's like a commercial, a commercial,
Yes.
a commercial before the show even starts. And then you hear that little ding, 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 ding. And oh my God, another series of 3 commercials is coming. But
Mhm.
for smaller shows, right? So we don't have those types of sponsors typically. When is it appropriate? And is it appropriate to drop a little commercial right in the middle? Should you wait till the end? Should you start out with it? Those are some of the questions that trip me up still.
My answer to that is it doesn't matter, because as a listener, I fast forward through the commercials anyway. I know advertisers are screaming. Um, so and I think most people do. However, that's the model, that's the method, that's how it is. I personally, for an entrepreneur, smaller podcast, I always encourage them to have their own advertisement for their own products and services as a quote unquote commercial. I like to put it in the middle of the podcast where you
Yeah.
have a nice little break. That's also helpful in storytelling as well, to give the audience a break in their brain to go and absorb what they were just listening to, and then you can bring them back, and you can do that sort of transition with a commercial. But there should be an advertisement for your services, your products, whatever it is you do, always in your podcast. This is your marketing machine, right? And there's such a natural way to do that, where you can write that with, like, hey, if you love everything we talk about here, I offer coaching one-on-one to help you transition from corporate, into the entrepreneur world, and help you find that. And we have a new 3-week course, blah, 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 insert whatever it is that you're marketing. That is a must have, whether or not I fast forward through it, Deb. It should still be in there, because not everybody does that. And why
Yeah.
not? It's not like it's costing you any time or money. Calls to action at the end, a great way to get around remembering that is to pre-record something that airs at the end of every episode anyway. Thanks for
Mm-hmm.
listening. Like, subscribe, share, follow. I'd really love for you to share this with a friend who could use this or whatever it is that you want them to action on. You could just record that. So do that and give that to your editor and have them slap your music on it and then tack that on to the end of every episode. Then you don't have to worry about it, right? And then that's giving you the freedom to focus on the important thing. And that's something that can be tailored for each person who's doing a podcast. I don't think there's any sort of one size fits all when it comes to podcasting, but it's definitely important to have that story structure, have good content, know who you're talking to, know why you're doing it, and have that same sort of flow like week to week, because that also builds that trust and that consistency with your audience as well. You can change stuff up, but don't try like a bunch of different things every episode. give it a solid go for a couple episodes with one formula, and then you can tweak things.
Yeah. And I know when I started, it was mostly audio. So 6 years ago, I wasn't doing a lot on video. There were podcasts that were specifically on YouTube, but it tended to be bifurcated. You know, you were kind of either on Apple and Spotify, or you were doing YouTube. Do you feel video is an absolute necessity right now?
I would say video is kind of a no-brainer when it comes to a podcast. If you're going to spend the time creating the content, and if you follow the model I'm explaining of this is your content machine, you do one piece of content for a half an hour once a month, once a week, and then you split that up into your social media clips and everything else. Why wouldn't you do it on video? Because video is king on every platform, every social platform. And if you're using this to promote whatever service or product you have, you should absolutely be doing it on video. Some people, and then it doesn't matter, because when you edit this and you upload this to Apple Podcasts, the audio only goes out that way, but you already have the video. So why wouldn't you just also upload it to YouTube as well? Because some people can't listen to podcasts and some people only want to watch it on video, and you
Mhm.
already have the content. It's like 5 more minutes to upload it to a different platform. And so my belief is, if you can, do it on video and use it to be repurposed across all of the different social media outlets or the broadcasting outlets.
Yeah.
I do have a client though who we started out on video and it was great and everything was fine, and she felt that on video she had to be full hair and makeup. She decided that it was too much pressure for her to do full hair and makeup, and that was the only way she wanted to show up on video. And she made the decision, like, I don't care, I'm just doing audio only. It works better for me, my life, my work schedule. And guess what, Deb? She has the same amount of listeners as she did when she had it on video. So like, that client also has, 20,000 followers on Instagram, and the podcast isn't her main focus and her main part of her marketing machine. It's an add-on piece for her. So for her, doing it on audio or video didn't really make a difference. So it kind of depends where you're at in your
Yeah.
world of creating an audience on the internet.
Yeah. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think it's important for the audience to know?
I think we've covered a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think the other piece we left out, though, is it can be fun. This can be fun, too. Just think of all the incredible people you can help, the incredible people you might interview. Here, you get to learn too, right? When you do your own podcast, especially if you do interview style, you get to learn too from experts, and dream big with your guest list. Like, if you want to interview Brad Pitt about cars and you have a car podcast, I mean, put him at the top of your list and set yourself some goals of what you want to do, and feel free to dream with it and have fun with it. Because if you're having fun and enjoying your time doing it, that comes through in your interviews, and your passion comes through, and that is an important element of it as well. And try not to focus on perfection with it.
Yeah.
Done is better than not. And especially when it comes to starting a podcast, don't feel like you have to hire a $10,000 graphic designer marketing firm to come up with your cover image and write your script and all of this. We have so many tools with AI now that can help you keep your costs low. So if cost is a thing, don't let it deter you. You can do this on a very low budget if you have to. There are a few things you need to spend a little bit of, like you need a light and you need a good microphone
Microphone.
and you got, yeah, like that's kind of it. And you probably already have all those things anyway post COVID,
Mhm.
and a good camera, right? If you're going to do it that route. The rest is pretty easy. So don't let those other pieces hold you up. If you're going to spend any time of your own time, which is your own money, especially if you work for yourself, it's really taking that moment to sit down and sort through the who, what, when, where, why, how of why you're doing this, who you're serving or who you wish to serve, and what the strategy is and what you want to talk about. And the core questions you always want to ask your guests that's going to help your audience. Because once you have that down, the rest kind of falls into place. And that's like the most valuable piece you have to offer anyway, anybody when you're doing a podcast.
Yeah. So make your podcast your playground. Have fun with it. And
Yeah.
Rachel, it's been so much fun having this conversation with you. If people want to reach out to you because they heard you on the show, how do they do that?
You got your call to action in, Deb. You are doing it. Yes, you can follow or find me at ladyontv.com because my last name is very difficult to spell and remember. And so that is how I came up with that. That's on LinkedIn. It's all the same on all the social medias. I would love to talk with you about podcasting. I get really jazzed. If you couldn't tell, I get really fired up about this. I love helping people and getting them set up with the basics. So you can message me there.
Sounds great. Thank you, Rachel. And is there a podcast in your future, my friend? Podcasts might not directly lead to immediate sales, but they do boost your visibility, your credibility, and build trust with your audience. So thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast streaming platform, and we will see you here next week. Take care, my friend.